Welcome to Life Happens, where Texans come to protect their legacy and prepare for the second half of life. Join your host, attorney Kim Hegwood with Hegwood Law Group, and our weekly guest as we navigate the challenges that emerge as life happens. Now here's your host, Kim Hegwood.
Good morning and welcome to Life Happens with me, Kim Hegwood, and our very special guest today is Ralph Hurst with Care Patrol, who we absolutely love. And so we're going to talk about something new today. Good morning, Ralph.
Good morning. How are you doing?
So I'm doing great. And so most definitely. So today we're going to talk about a great option for senior care that fits in your budget because care is expensive. And so let's kind of jump right into it. It's my understanding, so correct me if I'm wrong, and you'll help seniors find the right care facility. Can you tell us what type of living options there are?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I do help seniors find communities around the Houston area. There are assisted living, which are the bigger ones, which could have between usually 50 beds and up. There's memory care communities. There's nursing homes. There's independent living, where they could provide some meals per day. And there's also residential care homes that we have in the area.
So what's the difference between a residential care home and, say, maybe assisted living or nursing home care?
The biggest difference is the size. So residential homes are what they say. It's actually a residential home, usually in a community, and it could be between, say, 3 and 15 people, depending where it's at. 3 to 16 people, depending where it's at. And assisted living is going to be larger. It's going to have a lot more socialization going on. And nursing homes are usually going to be where somebody needs some long-term care or some skilled care with them. Assisted living, you don't necessarily need skilled care.
So I know a lot of our listeners are not familiar with personal care homes. So I'm going to ask you a few more things just to kind of help clarify that for them. What kind of level of care can a personal care home do?
Well, they could offer all kinds of care. It could offer where somebody is independent and, say, for instance, maybe they're at home by themselves. They could actually live in a personal care home as an independent. I have a few instances where some of the residents, they actually still drive, but they just want to not live by themselves, be in another residential home and kind of have their freedom where some things are taken care of, like their meals are taken care of. But I've also had instances where somebody's coming out of a hospital where they're actually bedbound and they take care of them as well from that point.
So the level of care doesn't really matter as long as it's not severely medical, I'm assuming?
Yeah, true. There's a point where if they need to have a nurse 24/7, like maybe a nursing home, then that would be the best choice if they're needing a nurse 24/7.
So do residential care homes, are they private pay? Is there any assistance for someone, maybe veterans, that type of thing, Medicaid? How can you pay for those?
No, actually, they are private pay. They are not Medicaid. So a family would have to know their budget coming into this. This is something I discuss with families. They could have a budget. The lowest ones, you could say about $2,000. Average is $4,000 in the Houston area and up. So we help find somebody with low budget needs, which in a personal care home, to be transparent, there would be a shared room. It wouldn't be a private room for a lower cost budget, but sometimes that's good because it's needed, because two seniors sharing the same room, they can actually develop a bond. So I kind of relate it to kind of being back in college a little bit, and you're creating that relationship and maybe a friendship with that person, somebody to talk to in that room, and y'all share that room. And so and it keeps the cost down on the budget. You can also have private rooms where they'll cost a little bit more for a private room in care.
So my dorm room wasn't that big in college, so.
Yeah. Well, these are going to be just a little bit better. Think about that. It is a home. So a 12-foot by 12-foot room.
Yeah.
with 2 beds on each side, and they can share it, and it fits in well with them, and it works out really well for a lot of residents.
Yeah. No, I'm just teasing. I've been in a bunch of the residential care homes, and they're very nice.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
it does give you that warm, fuzzy feeling of being, at home
right.
versus more of a less of a clinical type, setting. So I know there's a lot of good assisted livings as well that really work hard to make it, feel like home.
Yeah.
Um, and so, but I think just because it's small and there's not a lot of people usually, that it makes it feel more homey.
And that's something that we discuss with the seniors and families is, do they still want that home setting? Because maybe they're at a home, they want to go to another home, and they have that setting where there's just a few bedrooms, maybe 3 people in the home, maybe 4 people in the home, and so it's small, and so they get that extra care, that small relationship, maybe some of that privacy they want, as opposed to a larger home. Which in the larger system livings, you can have privacy as well with a room, but here it's just you're being taken care of, and especially with the folks who need just a little bit more care, you're definitely going to have that care with the staff, because there's always going to be somebody there 24/7 at a personal care home, and if somebody needs some care, they're going to be there day and night, checking on them.
So let's talk about our seniors who may have dementia,
Okay.
because the depending on how their dementia is progressing, is that somebody that can go to a residential care home?
No, yes. So when somebody has dementia, if you want to go to a residential care home, we want to make sure that somebody there, they can follow some directions. So there's still maybe when someone gets a little bit older, they start forgetting things in dementia. They're in the early stages of dementia, but they can go there. For instance, my mother-in-law was in a personal care home. So she wasn't a wanderer. She didn't want to seek to go outside. She was able to have conversations with the other assisted living residents there, and it worked well for her with her dementia that she had at the time. So somebody with dementia could be there because the caregiver's there and the other residents are there, and they'll help them along. And that's something that the personal care home will do an assessment on. I would talk to them first as well, and just to make sure that it's a good fit for them. But we want to make sure that it's not. We it would be safer to be at, to me, a personal care home, because there also will be somebody watching them. We know the stories about mom or dad. They were home, they turned on the stove, they were cooking, then they never turned the stove off. So that's something that's not going to happen at a personal care home. If there's a couple, which I have experience with as well, if somebody has dementia and say the other loved one had an incident, well, the one with the dementia might not quite notice what happened, might not know the medical need of their loved one because it's not connecting because of the dementia. So they're in a personal care home, they're being taken care of 24/7. The caregiver's there to help take care of them.
I've had clients that have had the runners, the
Yes, the
dementia.
Wanderers, correct.
Well, just some of them were some very excellent escape artists,
Oh, I
and,
know.
and
And and just for the folks out there know, even a window can be an escape artist,
yeah.
which you don't know of until it happens. And I've seen it happen. So that's how, if somebody has dementia, we'll look at the home. There are some homes that are licensed with dementia as well. So we could take care of them there at a small community that's certified with dementia. But a lot of them, we look into, make sure that they are a good fit for the home.
So what about those people that have sundowners? So they're up at night. Does that
So,
create problems, you think, in that small of an environment?
that's where we come in and look at the homes. So one of the important things is looking at a good personal care home, a safe care home. That's what we want to find. We want to find a trusted source for somebody that has it. So I had just an incident not too long ago where we had a resident who had some sundowners. So I had a good personal care home, and we had two caregivers. She had two caregivers come in, and one sat with her until we got maybe some medications adjusted, had a doctor come in, and then we worked on the sundowners. But she actually brought in extra caregivers just for this one resident to help her out.
And so you mentioned a little earlier, that your your mother-in-law, I believe, was in a
Yes.
personal care home. And so tell our listeners what made you decide to personal care home versus, some other type of facility.
Well, for us, this was um, the Beaumont Port Arthur area. So just a little bit of background. We chose that because we were in the situation where a lot of people are in a situation where mom or dad say they went to the hospital, something happened, and then they have to go to 24-hour care. And we were in the same boat where, what do we do? And we didn't know what to do. And we were just trying to network with people there. This was 5 to 6 years ago. And so we toured, like my wife and I went to different care homes and we looked at the cost between personal care homes and some larger assisted living. And we know we went around till we found something that was in our budget that we can afford for her mom. And so we found one that worked, didn't know anything, but we were fortunate that we found a really good one. And she stayed there for several years, actually. So that's where it kind of started with me. Which I probably didn't even know I was prerequisiting my job that I'm doing now 6 years ago. But I do it all the time, dude, and I just do it at a higher level now to make sure we're finding the right personal care homes.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer. I tell people all the time that God directed my law practice, so that all the elder law stuff I had to learn with my grandparents and caregiving and things like that is now facilitated over to my elder law practice, which is just fantastic. So I enjoy that immensely. And
Yeah.
so real quick, what kinds of things should people be looking for a good one?
First thing, one thing you can start looking off is the history of the home. The licensed home will have history on the state website. You can start looking there. Some of the smaller ones that are not licensed, that's where they're not advertised so much. So you have to go, there's going to be word of mouth, maybe some advertisement out there, but you have to go visit. You have to meet the owner of the home. You have to inspect the home. You have to look at the caregivers of the home. You have to look at the condition of the home. So you have to visit. And that's the most important thing to me, is have to visit, look at the safety record, know the owners or the operations manager, look at the caregivers. But investing time visiting homes is the most important thing to do to make sure you're comfortable finding the right place.
What would you think is the biggest aha moment from when you first started having to do this for your mother-in-law to now? What do you wish you would have known then?
Everything. um, I just, it was just learning everything so much that goes on with there and the care. The biggest thing for me is the care. Like I said, we got fortunate where we had. She was in um, a nursing home before that, but then she came to the assisted living home. So we were very, like I said, we're very fortunate on that. The biggest thing for me is just knowing the resources out there to call, because we spend a lot of time just researching for ourselves and calling people, um, and just not really knowing. So the biggest thing for me in aha moment is just knowing everything. The most satisfying thing for me is helping the families who are in the same situation I was 6 years ago, and helping them out, finding them, and the thanks that they give. And it's just overwhelming for me just to help families out and the thanks that they give. And I just, every time I do, it just makes me want to work harder to find the next family, find a good, safer home.
So what does it cost to work with someone, like that helps you, find places for their loved ones?
Well, there's no cost to the families for me because we get paid by our providers. So my service is a free community service for families. Um, we do all the background research. We have the relationships with the homes. We vet out the homes. We look at the history of the homes. So I've done a lot of that. We, Care Patrol, we've done a lot of that research already. And so I would talk with the families and I would discover the background of the loved one, location that they want to be. And then we also look at budget, because that's probably the most, one of the important things today is finding the budget and finding that safe home for them.
So we find in my elder law practice, that a lot of people are having to make that move. And so, and I know it's always difficult, for families to have to do, for their loved ones. And so, Ralph, tell us how we find you.
Well, you can find me, you can call me first at 832-698-9259 is my cell. 832-639-8800 is the office phone. We're open every day, so you can call anytime. You could also find us on the internet at carepatrolhouston.com, or you could go to Google, just type in Care Patrol, and it will pop up for Care Patrol Houston.
Perfect. And so I just wanted to thank you so much for all the information that you've provided for our listeners today. And you have a great rest of your day.
Okay, thank you. Have a good one.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Life Happens with Kim Hegwood. Be sure to tune in every Thursday at 10 a.m. wherever you listen to your podcast as we navigate through the challenges that emerge as life happens. The content of this podcast does not establish an attorney-client relationship or constitute attorney-client privilege, legal, medical, financial, or any other professional advice.